Hello, Alex Lafkas here. This that I'm uploading now is a video of Russ and I talking. Now, this was in the spring. It was the day before we floated the Pere Marquette. That streamer video was just uploaded a few weeks ago. It's a spring streamer, Pere Marquette one. This was after a day we had floated the Muskegon. I don't have any footage for that. Christian Gradowski filmed something. I don't know how well you can see that, but it's like the trout routes, Muskegon River thing with Russ and I. So that's on his channel. But so if you wanted to watch that, to give you a little background on what happened. But we just kind of talk about general streamer fishing, I don't know, principles, what we saw that day, kind of, how we approach a day of fishing. I'll talk a little bit about, a fly that we caught, the one nice fish we caught on, which is the video I just did of the Bitto envy thing, the mini peanut envy, but it was the one with the egg yarn head is what we caught the best fish on. It was super low, so that unweighted stuff seemed to be a better idea for us. But it's a 30-minute video or whatever, and it's a little bit of Russ and I just BSing. But we're talking a lot about streamer strategy and how we approach it, and as clients, some things to look for as well. So I don't know, that's semi-entertaining, semi-informative, a little bit of everything. So hope you enjoy it. Thanks. Well, let's hope you're better at this video than you are at fishing. He actually can cast.
Oh, yeah, I know I can. I'm sure. He's young.
You already had your shoulder done, didn't you?
Yeah, but it's time to get it there.
But that 20 years is worn out.
Those things got expiration dates.
Sweet. About time for another new shoulder. I want to ask you, we could have taken today off and done the next two.
We do this. We could have. If we didn't fish in the sun, then what are we?
That's true.
We gotta be like everybody else on the planet. And go out there and choke it up and practice what we preach and work hard and cast your ass off in the blazing heat of the day in Mobile, Alabama, like with a sledgehammer on a railroad tie. Sure. That's what, blistering in the sun out there in the blazing wind.
It was windy.
Fishometer at 0, by the way, today. Zero.
Was it like
not 1 bar, not 2 bars, 0 bars. 0 fishometer.
I saw it at 10% this morning, and I was like...
When did we move the first one?
Right away.
Good one.
I moved a few right away.
We had fish going
like,
on that
in hindsight, it's like... I thought there'd be a better afternoon bite, but in hindsight, it should have been a sprint down here, fish the first few hours of light, and just be done with it.
Because it was that kind of day, and it was windy.
It was just I thought it was gonna be afternoon.
Well,
looking at the weather, and there was a brief window because when we saw so right before I got that fish, we saw the two big ones just laid out there shallow, so there was something going on.
Yeah, there was. They were moved. There was movement.
But then it was like, but that's what I always see too is what happened where it was like there was that little 30-minute, 40-minute deal, and then once the clouds kind of moved in, it was like, yeah, now it's done.
Yeah, it was done, and then obviously
because you like that water down there that we hit later better, and it was worse.
Yeah, I think that was better water, but it just is good,
well,
and that's probably because we had volumes up there, or maybe it got too close to the front, but we're gonna have different conditions tomorrow. We're gonna have no sun tomorrow.
None.
Wind, a little bit of extra water,
thunderstorms.
It starts here shortly, doesn't it?
That's very soon.
Great.
Very soon.
Great. But it's what it is. But that's always like what I find about, when you get into a stable weather pattern, you can always kind of find that window that's more consistent. And when you get these fronts and you got to deal with them, it's kind of more about guessing and grinding to find the window.
That's what it is.
Versus
it's trying a lot harder.
I know, because when you get, if you just have beaming sun and you have no change for multiple days, well, my window's A or B and there's nothing in between. But the second the frontal changes come is when it always throws a wrench. And we see that down south a lot. Where it's like, I know what to expect when we're doing that Arkansas thing. And I'm like, okay, 4 days of sun. Here's what we're going to have. Get there early, get your fishing in. Better do good before 10 in the morning. And then hope for the best. But when
you did get that one right when that
it was right on the front.
Activity,
it was like right then.
And you had all the dry fly stuff going on, and it was
And
like
we just
that
seen
1
the two
hour,
big ones
and
laid out.
They were all sitting out there, and then that littler one, we got it right after it, but it was all in that same show.
Yeah. No, and it was within that 30 minutes or whatever where we saw the two bigger fish laid out.
Right.
But that's not that like we had the same thing last year with Herm where it was like it was not good, and then we started seeing some fish laid out. And we didn't do much better, but it was like, okay, they're out now. And it actually forced us to do another 7 miles and not catch anything.
You got to just try. That's what it is when you faced with sun and, put us back.
Adverse frontal conditions or whatever else.
It just puts us into that realm where we're trying to practice what we're preaching and we're telling people to do it. So we might as well take it on the chin.
And we got less greedy and kept, like we knew they were going to eat small and white. And we knew we could have started with that at the beginning of the day and caught fish. But we tried other things first because we kind of already assumed we could go to that. And then finally go back later in the day and it's like,
That's what it was.
But we did at least try other stuff. Because you might as well try the big bait first, see if you can jump something worth catching.
What was yours? It was like a 3-inch, 3
We got all of our stuff on 3-inch stuff.
Maybe 2.
3
It was like this much marabou on a shank and a hook. Like 2 inches. And there was like some bull or something blocker head at the front. Which just
push water.
Yeah, and it didn't do much, and it didn't matter. And I don't think it matters because they're eating that little minnow thing. So it's just a bleep of white going through the water. And we could have, we knew we could have started with that. But we hadn't been down here in forever, so you might as well try a little bit more first. And then when you get desperate, you resort to
old meat and potatoes.
meat and potato. Feel like, all right. And like, I know if I'd have been with a client, the first thing I would have done is been like, why don't we start with this and then go from there?
Right.
But when it's you and I, who cares?
Yeah, that's what it is. It's being relaxed and not being angry and fishing
Not caring
hard.
that much. But trying hard.
But not getting angry.
No.
Just fishing.
You're going to see them. If you do everything right and you fish well, you're going to see some stuff. Stuff's going to happen.
Right.
On 99% of the days, there's always that, like first day massive cold front without a cloud in the sky. If you have 3 days of clouds and then you get that 1 day north wind, not a cloud in the sky, cold night, like that's probably not the best one to be out there on. That's the one where you could actually go and not see any fish until the last hour of light.
True.
So, I don't know. I mean, no, it's always a grind though. Even when you think back to like the good days you have, there's always those random days where it's like, you are hitting it perfect and it's bang, 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 bang. And that usually goes for a few hours and then it'll die. But there's a lot of days where it's like grind, see the window, see it die, see it die. So that's kind of typical. It's just with these fronts, that's a little harder to predict, I would say.
Would you change anything about the approach today or not?
I would have started with the small fly to start. We would have lacerated them, and I would have got there earlier in the morning and just quit at noon.
Yeah.
Right.
But not, I say that, and I'll still take the chance of the front coming in.
Because there was that happening. There was that potential.
And who knows? Like, the fact of the matter is, these are also the days that I've gone early and been burned until the front came in. And then, so
But it was that peak time frame, I think.
It was. I think it was, too. And just the fact that we saw them bigger ones laid out.
Right. Actually, the confirmation in your mind, what do the bass guys always say? If you see them, they're probably there.
Yeah, you'll catch them.
Right. If you don't see them.
You're not catching them.
Right.
And you see that with like woodpile fish and stuff like that. Like, you see it frequently. Like if you're floating down a river and not spooking fish and not kicking fish, well, you're not catching fish.
Right.
But if you're seeing them and kicking them and moving them, if you're not catching them, you're doing something wrong.
Right.
And that's when you can learn to change. When there's nothing out and nothing available, it's hard to make judgments on if it's approach, presentation, or if it's just not happening. But we did have that 50-degree water today, so we knew there would be some activity.
Absolutely,
and that's why I think we were getting some chasers and everything when we started with small, and then because we were moving fish kind of that, like when I started, it was that 4-inch thing, which was earlier in the morning, so it was a little lower light. And then it kind of, that seemed to dissipate as the sun got higher, and then you just keep going smaller. Okay. But that's pretty typical. I mean,
we did have one rod today too, so we didn't have
right.
the
So you
narrowing.
can't, because if we'd have had two, you're going to have
one
guy on the small white all day and the other guy playing with everything else.
Right.
I mean,
if you don't have that, you're half as effective.
Yeah,
you know,
you are half as effective, and that's a big part, especially in a big river like that, and especially if you're not familiar with the water as much. You know, I think, yeah, I'd say, yeah, but
I'm looking forward to some non-sun tomorrow.
Yeah, it's not good. I mean, that's the one thing Gallup said. Either give me sun or give me clouds. But the back and forth and the weird is kind of the weird. And we had a 20-some mile an hour east wind today, which is probably not exactly what you're going to look for.
No. The fishing barometer says it's not
0%.
what you were looking for, but that's okay.
Yeah, whatever. You can still make
try hard.
happen.
I mean, we make our guys do it, so why don't we take our medicine? You know, you go out there, you try hard.
Yep.
What do I always tell people? It's after you. It's like, it's not the guy who goes 46 days. It's the guy who goes 48.
No.
He's the one who catches them.
Oh, yeah.
You know, what are you going to do? Not catch one?
Yeah, who cares about that?
Keep casting, write the check, right?
Doesn't matter.
Got to have that mentality.
You want to go? You want to try?
You got to try. Yeah, if you want them bad enough.
And most of the guys, most of the actual anglers you take get it. The guys who fished enough will understand that. It's just the people who, book their one day a year and think that that's going to be their day. That's almost impossible to make that happen.
It's asking a lot.
Yeah. You can weigh things in your favor, but
you can try the best you can, but you still got to put in that work.
If you're booking, that's where I think the biggest issue comes in for clients is they're looking at well, let's go. I can do April 27th. It's like, well, I mean,
you got an alternative 3 day?
Right.
What's your day 2 or 3?
Right. I mean, in theory.
Well, that's like us in a nutshell today. Today's a good example. I mean, we had our days to do this.
Yep.
We booked our days. We made the time to do it. We had the slot. So we wedged it into other stuff. And
still made something happen.
But we had to earn it.
Yep.
You got to try. You got to try. You can't drag that butt of that rifle. I mean, the minute it starts getting lean, you got to kind of push through that. And that's kind of exactly what happened today. When I'm looking back at it, it's like, start dragging that butt of that rifle. It was just before those bugs started coming. There wasn't much happening at all. We saw a couple good ones, got the spirits up a little bit. And, right then and there. Just try hard for that one moment in time.
Right.
Do you think the bugs have anything to do, at least in streamer fishing, in your...
I don't really either, but it does, their old saying is the activity brings activity.
And I will, see, I agree with that. Usually what I see more of,
but this was a warm attrition day.
And typically in areas that have big time hatches, I tend to see the streamer bite start struggling around those major important hatches. So, I don't think that's as much of a concern where we're at. What I do tend to see though is if you're out there on some random day, especially in the springtime for us, when you start seeing those midges flying around, that usually means at least the water temp is flattened and is starting to rise now. So at least that's a good thing. But I don't think oh man, there's great hatch right now. It should be great streamer fishing. I'm not a believer in that. I think our fish get so keyed into, are we chasing, are we drift feeding? When you get around major bug events, I think that has more to say with it. Because basically from what I see is I don't really like the streamer fishing around some of our bigger mayflies, say Hendrickson's. I don't do as well around that. Or any of the big caddis hatches. I don't do as well around that. As you kind of get away from that and bugs kind of get a little more spotty, then I have decent streamer fishing again. But then kind of as you start getting into the June stuff, it's not so much. There's little windows. Everybody shoots at 55-degree water, and it's it can be on fire, but I see so many hard days in that 52, 55-degree water, and then you have one where they're just
flying out everywhere, and it's one of the hardest days to predict. It's like you have to go 10 days straight thinking it's all going to be good, and you're going to struggle, and then you get a boom day. You know, some of these other rivers, like where we're at, where they have smolt hatches, which is actually a bigger component to spring feeding than your bug stuff, due to lampricide, whatever it is. You know, if you don't have those bugs, now you have like a minnow forage base that's readily available. Or like a random minnow spawn or something like that. But even like down on the White in Arkansas, the bait guys hate it when the caddis hatch starts.
Oh.
They can't get them on bait. You know, well, you know, shovel a bunch of shad out there and drift some bait. You know, I mean, that's how they get around it. Bucket of chum. But, you know, typically when the guys fish the live minnows, they're like, no, minnow bite dies. You just can't catch fish during the caddis hatch. Because they're so keyed in on that one. And I mean talking the 8, 10, 12 pounders. You know, they're eating pounds and pounds of size 16 caddisworms. So I think it's an availability thing. Like any predator, they're going to be like, well, I can chase and do this and expend that energy, or I can sit here and eat. Well, why are you going to chase? You know, you're going to get accustomed to the drift and just feeding in the drift.
I mean, at least for like Muskegon, you have eggs. The moment eggs
well,
you have that open window when there's no food, right?
Well, you'd like to think, but with the amount of suckers we saw in there today, they're eating sucker spawn. There's no way, because like everywhere we're seeing those fish is behind where them suckers are spawning.
Right.
You know, they're sitting up there, so that's going to hurt that streamer bite too.
The influence is strong in these.
And I think it's still, like if I were to really think about what's going on up there, you know, yeah, on a better condition day, you might get more fish to chase. So they're eating the minnows, but dude, that is so many suckers spawning down there.
It's barbaric.
I mean, like
fortunately, the water's 55, so their metabolism's good.
Yeah, because they're gonna have to keep eating. But
otherwise, it's like
dude, we were going over those holes, and I'm just seeing everywhere you look, it's just suck man. Every white, red horse, freaking rock roller. I mean, it's just like, are you kidding me? It was disgusting, but. I think that's a big part of it too right now. Yeah,
there's a lot of super abundance of food down there. Boy. But they'll still rise. You know, the fish were rising.
Yeah,
the fish
but that's eating another morsel.
You know,
the desperation isn't there.
No, the desperation isn't there. You had to really want one.
And if you get the conditions, though, that should all make it swing.
Right. But that's the one thing you'll have in those like June days too, and some random days where you get that perfect condition.
There's like 3 days in June that we get that are rainy and crappy.
But usually once those bigger bugs start, man, it's like, throw that stuff down for a minute.
But there's that, it's like, it's that late May, early, like before anything of that tweener before that next major hatch. But once them big bugs come, it's
I mean, the big bugs meaning relative term, but like if you're saying those bigger stoneflies, those matcha trasher type business on these rivers, you're pretty much telling the outlaw Josie Wales war it's over.
Yep.
You know, you're putting that streamer pole down. At least till you get a condition day. And then you might have 3 hours or 4 hours in the morning. You do have the benefit of having some of these rivers open up at different times of year, which is kind of cool. You have like the trout rivers open up, sections of them. So that changes the game too.
It used to be nice when like more than 10 miles were closed in the state, but we got about 10 miles that are closed all year.
Right,
right. Really, that's good for about 3 days, if that. But it's all tricky. It's all a game. You do, like, the more you do this, you do see that there's, like, really defined windows. But, like, where I'm fortunate and where Russ is fortunate is, like, you know, we're not sitting here booking 20 days from mid-April to mid-May. You know, I'll do a handful of trips and I can always go, I know we talked about Wednesday, but what about Thursday? You know, like when you can start shuffling stuff like that with like one of my clients that Russ and I fished with the other day, we just threw Russ in the back. I think we caught 15 fish over 20 inches last year together. And we probably went 6-8 days, but he's the guy who's like, Tuesday looks good. What are you doing? And I'm like, I'm open. Let's go. You got it. You know,
right.
and
it's very hard.
And that's when you can start when you find a guide who can actually have a schedule like that, who is actually competent. as a client, you're going to be in very good position. But between, because typically that leads you to somebody who doesn't work or doesn't do it and doesn't really know how to do it, because everybody who's, most of your better guys are like just trying to, they're going to fill that calendar and be like, well, I got so-and-so Monday and so Tuesday and so Wednesday versus being a little more flexible.
It's this state though. It's this
state. A lot of this, because we don't have it is, because when you go to Montana, you know what a bad day of fishing is out there? A bunch of 14-inch rainbows. You know what a bad day fishing here is? A bunch of brook trout like that. And browns like this, 6-7 inchers. You get a day the brown trout aren't out. We don't have them stupid rainbows just to go pepper on. Out there, they go into a riffle, run a bobber, and so we caught 17 rainbows. It was great, I guess, but we don't really have that. Which is fine. You just got to be a little bit. It's a brown trout fishery. A brown trout are.
You got to have a guy that's not angry at him and that's got a little bit of flexibility and who's been through the ringer a little bit. And even the guys that are just starting, you got to get them there to the point where
it's getting them to the ability wise, and then getting them to not try too hard.
Right.
Because they try too hard and want it so bad, and that's usually a case for failure.
Oh, that's
it's like
misery.
Bring it back, dial it back. I'll let you know when it's going to be good. Trust me, you'll get your opportunities. Will you catch them?
The guys you watch, you're watching, you get tired watching them fish.
I basically get tired of watching anyone fish when I feel like the conditions are that bad and there's no chance. I'm just like, I don't know what's more painful. Is it you fishing or me watching this?
Right.
Because this is horrible.
Right.
And I would rather be taking, save some money. We're done.
Right.
I'm going home to take a nap. I don't need any more of this.
It's really, really tough for people to understand to back off of their aspirations of the dream of the streamer.
Oh, the dream, yeah.
The streamer dreaming in this state, you do a little bit more dreaming than a little bit more streamering. But, often it's going to be a little bit less. You're going to have your days. And if you get good guides and you have some ability and you go through the process of making some failures, because you're not going to go out on April 15th and destroy your trout. It's not going to happen. You might have to go April 15th, May 4th, May 15th, and then you might have a conditioning. Or you book
April 15 through 17 and hope one of the days fish is good.
It's just...
And be patient. If we weren't set on streamer fishing today, we'd have... If I'd have been guiding today, one, I'd have been running that little white thing, and the second I started seeing some better fish up, I'd have been parking on better fish and just being like, look, we're just going to take what we can get today, do what we can, let's see what tomorrow brings. And that's the advantage. When you've been south is we got multiple days. Pick and choose our battles. Today's terrible. We're done earlier today. Wind's bad today. We're done earlier today. We'll do this the next day. You formulate a plan.
Yes, you do. And, it's a lot of this is simply when you guys are booking a trip out there, put a little bit of effort in. Kelly always used to say, oh, these guys go on those elk hunts to, way up in the mountains somewhere, and they put the rocks in the backpack and they go hiking up and down the hill and, walk around their neighborhood looking like an idiot in boots and camo gear. Not one of these guys bring a fly pole and start casting it out at their local stadium. No. Down in the soccer field.
Yeah, they spend $3,000 on a 5-day trip, but didn't spend $100 for a casting lesson.
Yeah, go hire your local kid down at the shop. At least he can yell at you a little bit before you get really yelled at.
Maybe tell you not to go. Dude, because you can't really.
You got to put in some effort here.
Well, and the fact of the matter with fly fishing is it's one of those things that takes time to learn. So if you don't put in effort to learn it, you can't do it well and you can't do it successfully because you're going to tire out too quick. You're not going to be able to keep casting when even in the lull times I'm tired, this doesn't work. Can I take a break now? You start getting in that and you're just doomed.
Yeah,
it's over.
Once you start dragging that butt of that rifle, I call it.
Like even when we got that fish today, and I'm sitting there telling Russ like, don't even row. It doesn't matter if he bites, I'll catch it. You know, whatever. It's like I'm more worried about him. I'm still gonna keep casting him, but then his thing is the same thing I do, where it's like, dude, if you're casting, I'm rowing. Because there ain't no way.
It's a team. It's an absolute team.
Because you've seen me do it too, where I'm like, well, I guess he's casting. I better be rowing, because if all of a sudden Megatron shows up and I'm not doing my job, we're done.
It's a team. It's the one thing that you will realize in this streamer deal. It's a team. It doesn't matter if you got 2 guys in the boat and a rower. Everybody's working together. Guy in front misses a fish. Guy in back does the cleanup. Guy in the middle does the rowing. Everything. Everybody's got a little role.
Yeah, and if you got 2 guys, that's one of the my pet peeves is like watching the guy in the front hit a spot and the guy in the back hit the same spot, and I'm like, why are we doing that? I know if I'm fishing behind somebody and I see a guy hit this spot,
I can turn it around and fish on the other end or something.
The other side, the front of the log, way up behind the log, but I'm not coming from the same spot. I'm like, dude, if it was there, if it didn't eat, it still came and looked, or it spooked, or whatever. So it's like, I know it looks like a great spot. That dude's fly just went in it.
That was like your call in Arkansas for my big one. Chris was hitting every corner, and you're like, you can't fish that. Turn around and just cast.
Yeah, just cast.
And then, boom.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
It's all 4 foot everywhere.
Yep.
Right.
I don't know. It could be right. It could be left. Who cares? Gun it.
Yeah. And the last thing you want to do is do that. Cast at that same spot.
Why?
Oh, it's frustrating, but that's okay. People do it. They just got to learn somehow.
That's just what it is. Yeah, but that's the other thing is you talk about working as a team. It's the same way as clients should work as a team.
Right.
When you have 2 guys in the boat, and I had this the other day.
None of this, I want this fly. I got to have that same color. I got to cast it that same. I want to be in front. Oh, that's great.
I had it the other day where it was we moved on white in the back. I'm like, oh, good, the back guy moved one. Thank God. And then the guy in the front puts white on, and I'm like, we're switching yours now. It's like okay, no, he found one that works. Let him fish that one. He's in the back. Play with some other ones. They're not biting that. He moved one on that, so why don't you try whatever it is?
Just run the same exact thing. That's a brilliant concept.
It was just
casting the same side at the same spot with the same stuff. Expect a different result. So
that's a good thing to ask both of you. What's your color rotation?
Whatever. I don't care.
Don't care.
Every day is different.
Every day is different. If you're looking at certain river, right? Today, for instance, we knew we were in a biomass fishing situation. We started off bigger because you always have visions of sugar plums, and then we
did start white because we knew that was going to be probably the ticket.
Right. And we got smaller and we started catching fish, but there is a biomass involved in the fishing today. So we knew that some form of lighter color fly was probably going to be effective. Now, if
I was in another river without that stuff, I
different.
would have been probably natural, neutral tone, something that matched the bottom.
Right.
That's
me too. I do the same thing. Alex and I, we fish similar, and if you're matching that bottom, chances are your biomass is matching that bottom. Sculpins, crayfishes, worms.
And a lot of it's light penetration. If I was starting super early.
You're seeing the way the light looks on the water, and that's when it died today, is when the light changed, and the white didn't look so good.
Right, when it wasn't the glow around it.
Right, correct. So the light in the day does make a difference, and the cloud cover, et cetera, et cetera. But usually you look at that river and you're like, oh, that's the fly. But that comes from a lot of time. You look at it, you're like, oh, I'm going to.
You look at the color of the water. You look at the color of the bottom.
That thing's popping. That thing's doing good.
Yep. And light penetration. If I were to start super early and it was pretty dark out there, I'd probably start with black.
Right.
Overcast, sun being up. One of my normal ones I jump to is an olive and ginger or olive and yellow. 2-tone with a little bright to it. Those seem to work interchangeably. And then bright sun. In that watercolor we had today, which was a little more tannic, I do tend to lean more white. The water's running a little to the green side, where you look down and you're like, man, that looks green. That's chartreuse and white. But it's, And usually that's just a starting point, but it tends to be pretty consistent. Like you saw it with us down south, like where it was, olive and yellow, olive and white.
Yeah. And some days it was olive tails, and then it would die off with olive tails.
Again, you went to the whitetail, which I still don't understand why that happens, and it drives me crazy. But then you're a little bit more to the white shade.
Yep.
But it's weird, like that. I hate that, but yes. That's like the worst thing that I ever had happen was like, no, they actually bite the whitetail better today. Thanks.
You sitting there with 10 deceivers with different colored tails.
Yeah, it's like, oh, that's great.
Yeah.
And maybe that's mental at that point. I don't know. But it sure...
No, sometimes it makes a difference, Al. As weird as it may seem.
Yeah, it's depressing. Like, I can't fit anything else in my box. Now I got to fit more in my box. I'm like, well, what? And then I look through it, I'm like, I haven't run that in 3 years. I haven't run that in 3 years. And you start pitching shit, like...
We need to get you a bigger box.
No, I have 4 streamer boxes. From this size to that size.
I've only seen your blue one.
Oh, yeah, I got 3 others.
Yeah, I gave him that box.
Yeah, he did. Well, 10 years, 8, 10. I was like, I'm not spending that much money on that thing.
Take it.
So I had a client this year in Arkansas. I'd be like, I got a bunch of those boxes, dude. How about you need another one? How about you tie me some flies for it? And I'm like, I'd rather buy one. No, I don't need a box that bad. I'm tiny enough. Come on.
No, you're right.
No. Dude, those are going to work so good for... I don't care. I'm not doing it.
And tomorrow will be totally different, maybe.
Yeah, it should be. Yeah. It's still that weird east wind, but at least, and by switching... That's one thing we did do today that probably was smarter is like, we did go to the big river today, which I always kind of like being in a larger river when there's more sun. For some reason, the small environments to me,
right.
Those fish freak out a little bit more. So like, we kind of planned this with the thoughts of like, okay, we can go down there and probably, I thought it would be better, but yeah, I don't know. You just, who knows. And then thinking, okay, well, hopefully we get enough rain and junk to make a difference up here, as long as you got that low ceiling tomorrow.
Right.
The small rivers
really,
tend to fish better with a low
ceiling.
ceiling.
You got, you got overcast. You got some conditions. You
The
have the water
rivers.
temperature. There's a lot going for you, especially if you just get that condition. East or not, I think it'll be all right tomorrow.
Because I think, I think the smaller rivers. The big rivers, to me, it's always seemed like you need everything working in your favor to have success for the biggest fish, but it seems like those smaller rivers, it's like, man, they take advantage of feeding opportunities when they present themselves. And a lot of times it's a low ceiling or rising water, whatever it happens, or dirty water, or whatever it is. They're a little bit, seem to be more opportunistic.
Right.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, and you have a little bit less number of migratory creatures this year than other years. So a little bit less.
And there'll be less suckman.
There'll be less suckman up this high.
Oh, God. That's a plague down there, man. That thing was... I mean, every time I turn my head, I'm like seeing 3 to 5. Like,
and they do alert your fish, too. They go running down river and they blow that herd out.
Oh, yeah, they do. We saw sturgeon laying there. Like, what?
We saw 2 sturgeon today.
Like, what the hell's going on? Where are we? Foreign lands.
We were in foreign lands.
Man.
I gotta be up north, boys, down on the west side a little bit more.
Oh, it's good. It's always fun down here, and it seems to be a little different window down here than up north. So, like, you play that game.
You do.
Good God, I would have hated to have been up there today.
Oh, I would have been.
You
couldn't have been in here. That would have been 1-800.
No, just don't.
Yeah, you need some kind of 1-800 number if you were up there today.
Don't do that.
You got a lot of explaining to do.
Yeah.
You better learn your birds. Smiles, cook an 80-course lunch.
Mm-hmm. No, there's that is one advantage to Michigan if you can get flexible enough and spend enough time to do it. Like, there's a lot of options, man. There's a lot of options, and like, if you get comfortable with enough miles of river, you can really jump around and have good fit. Like, down south, it's like those guys fish. I mean, the guys who fish the most amount of water are fishing 45 miles. Man, I feel like I could go to at least 150 miles in the state and be like, where are
Yeah.
you? I've caught him here. I've caught him there. This is right. This is right. You know, to where it's like, we've got a lot. You know, we've got a lot. So, and capitalizing on those small windows in different areas will really extend seasons, whether it's streamer fishing, chasing hatches, whatever it is. You know, you can really, really extend certain seasons. And that's fun. And you don't get sick of looking at the same thing. I don't know how people, you know, some people make a living running 20 miles their whole life, and I'd lose my mind. But no way. No, we're lucky.
You go 20 miles in your living room.
No. Yeah.
20 miles in a... Again, I'd lose my mind too.
No, I know, and then like... And that's the nice thing. Like, that's one of my favorite things about Michigan is like, I start jumping around and having the ability to take a raft and taking one angler at a time and doing that. Like, you can all of a sudden drift boat. Be nice to have a jet boat, but I don't need a fourth boat at this point in my life. You can do a lot. When you have a little raft and a drift boat, you can fish a lot of water. And that's... I don't know.
You can do the whole state.
Pretty much.
In reality, yeah.
Pretty much.
For a streamer guy, for sure. You know, You're just going to streamer fish in the state of Michigan, and it's pretty friggin' slow. It ain't like you're dealing with the White River in Arkansas. You could, scratch your nose and pull your oars up and stand around and look a couple directions.
There's about 2 rivers you can't do that on.
Right.
In the state.
And that would even be sectional, I would think, but...
Yeah, this is sturgeon.
Right. Pigeon.
Boardman gets tricky too.
Yeah, Boardman is. Dig a lot of gravel there.
You gotta roll a lot.
Sure. It's narrow. It's narrow. Dig some gravel.
You actually gotta pull on the oars down here on the PM too.
Yeah, you do. You gotta steer a little bit.
Yeah, you gotta steer a little. You're not just the tailwater, just, I don't know, it's concrete. We just do donuts and throw things in circles, and eventually somebody catches one, and you're like, how the hell did they do that? But it happens.
It does happen.
I know. It's depressing. God.
It does.
It would be nice to have a little more difficult water, but
Gotta get yourself your blazer up here.
no. I don't have room for another boat. If you ever come by my house, you'll be like, yeah, you don't have room. I know.
We need the barn dominium.
That's why I need a barn dominium.
You hear that, Sarah?
Yeah,
barn
dominium. Big one. Just a small room, big barn. No, dude, the Lund eats up that. The raft is here, and the drift boat's here. There's no room.
Yeah,
All in your garage?
Yeah, there's no cars in my garage either.
Oh, no. The drift boat's in front of the garage because there's no room in the garage because there's
Small
2 boats
raft,
in the garage.
big raft, big
Drift
drift
boat,
boat,
little drift
boat.
How many boats?
I have four struggle stick boats.
Yeah, it's 4 rowing things, rowing crafts.
You need a big boat. You need a
There's
motor.
I know that. That's no big
We've been
deal.
looking at a few.
We've already been moving.
We've
that
already
direction.
eradicated the tiller out of the program, but we've looked. We almost went and looked at one.
Yeah,